Life force. The belief in a life force emerged from a simple, unresolved observation. A living body and a dead body are made of the same material, yet one moves, grows, heals, and feels, while the other does not. Before anatomy, chemistry, or microbiology, this difference demanded an explanation. Life force was not imagined as a mystical thrill, but as a necessary cause for animation itself. This idea appears independently across cultures. In ancient China, it was called qi. In India, prana. In Greco-Roman thought, pneuma. In many indigenous traditions, similar concepts described vitality as breath, warmth, or inner motion. These were not borrowed metaphors. They were parallel conclusions drawn from shared human experience. Something unseen seemed to arrive at birth and depart at death, and no visible mechanism explained that transition. Life force addressed several problems at once. It explained growth, which otherwise appeared miraculous. Seeds becoming plants, children becoming adults, wounds closing on their own. It explained sensation and consciousness, which could not be reduced to flesh alone. Pain, emotion, and awareness were experienced internally, yet no physical structure accounted for them. Life force also explained illness. People weakened gradually, recovered unevenly, or declined without visible injury. In the absence of pathogens, sickness appeared as a disturbance within vitality rather than an external invasion. Within this worldview, life force functioned as a regulating economy. Health meant balanced circulation of vitality, illness meant depletion, excess, or obstruction. Food, breath, rest, movement, herbs, and ritual were believed to influence this internal balance. Emotional states mattered because they visibly altered breathing, strength, appetite, and sleep. Mind and body were inseparable, not as poetry, but because no clear boundary could be observed between them. This framework made sense before modern science because it matched what people could consistently observe. Rest restored strength. Fear weakened the body. Grief prolonged illness. Stress produced physical symptoms. Without knowledge of hormones, nerves, or immune systems, life force unified these correlations into a single explanatory model. It was not precise, but it was coherent. The unsettling implication is not that ancient people were foolish, but that humans instinctively explain what they cannot see by naming patterns as forces. Life force filled a gap between experience and understanding. Even today, when science explains mechanisms, the deeper question remains: why life feels like more than material motion? Life force was an early answer to that discomfort. It reminds us that explanation often begins not with certainty, but with the refusal to accept that life's most obvious difference should remain unnamed. Breath as spirit. The belief that breath itself was a form of spiritual energy arose from a direct and unavoidable observation. When breathing stops, life ends. Long before internal organs were understood, breath was the most visible sign of vitality. It moved constantly, responded to emotion, and vanished at death. Air became more than a substance. It became the medium through which life itself was thought to operate. Culturally, this idea appears with striking consistency. In ancient Hebrew thought, ruach meant breath, wind, and spirit without clear distinction. In Greek philosophy, pneuma referred both to air and the animating principle of life. Latin spiritus carried the same double meaning. These were not poetic accidents. Language preserved what people believed, that life entered the body through breath and departed the same way. Breath solved a problem that matter alone could not explain. A person could be intact yet lifeless. The moment of death was often described not as a wound or collapse, but as an exhalation, the last breath. Without knowledge of oxygen or circulation, it was reasonable to assume that air itself was the active agent. Invisible, mobile, powerful, and essential, breath fit the profile of a life-giving force. Within this worldview, breath functioned as a bridge between the inner and outer worlds. It crossed boundaries freely. It entered the body without being consumed, altered instantly with fear or calm, and left without resistance. Because emotions visibly changed breathing patterns, inner states were thought to disturb or purify the spirit directly. Prayer, chanting, fasting, and controlled breathing were therefore understood as ways of regulating spiritual condition, not psychological mood. This belief system made sense before modern science because breath was the one internal process humans could consciously control. You could not command your heart to slow or your blood to move differently, but you could hold your breath, deepen it, or lose it under stress. That control suggested agency. Breath appeared to obey will, linking life, intention, and spirit into a single mechanism. The unsettling implication is that breath-based spirituality was never merely symbolic. It was an early attempt to explain how something invisible could govern life so completely. Even now, breath remains tied to panic, calm, survival, and speech. Ancient people mistook air for spirit, but they were not wrong to notice that life depends on something unseen, constantly entering and leaving the body, shaping both body and mind without ever being grasped. Vital heat. The belief that heat was a form of spiritual or vital energy emerged from one of the most immediate sensory differences between the living and the dead: warmth. A living body is warm to the touch. A dead body grows cold. Long before temperature could be measured scientifically, heat appeared to be life itself in motion. Coldness, by contrast, was associated with weakness, decay, and death. This idea was especially developed in ancient Mediterranean medicine. Hippocratic and later Galenic thought treated heat as the active principle of the body. Digestion, growth, movement, and reproduction were all believed to require internal warmth. Food was not broken down by chemistry but cooked by the body's innate heat. Aging, therefore, was understood as a gradual cooling, a slow exhaustion of the inner fire that once sustained vitality. Vital heat explained several problems that lacked clear causes. Why did the elderly weaken even without injury? Why did fever sometimes precede recovery? Why did exposure to cold environments increase illness and death? Without microbes or immune systems, heat offered a unifying explanation. Strength meant sufficient warmth, sickness meant disrupted or excessive heat, death meant its final loss. Within this worldview, heat functioned as a regulated force that could be nurtured or damaged. Diet mattered because certain foods were thought to increase or diminish internal fire. Rest conserved warmth, exhaustion wasted it. Sexual activity was often treated as draining because it appeared to reduce strength afterward. Moral and emotional states also mattered, since anger visibly flushed the body and fear caused chilling withdrawal. Heat linked physiology, behavior, and ethics into one continuous system. This belief made sense before modern science because temperature correlated strongly with survival. Hypothermia kills. Fever accompanies illness. Newborns require warmth to live. Even without understanding enzymes or metabolism, people could reliably observe that warmth preserved life and coldness threatened it. Heat felt active, cold felt inert. Life aligned naturally with fire rather than frost. The unsettling implication is that vital heat was not merely an error, it was a misidentified mechanism. Modern biology confirms that life depends on energy conversion and temperature regulation, even though the fire is chemical rather than mystical. Ancient thinkers were wrong about the substance but not about the pattern. Life does burn. It consumes fuel. It fades when that process slows. Vital heat reminds us how easily observable truth can become symbolic doctrine when the underlying machinery remains hidden. Blood as energy. The belief that blood itself was a form of spiritual energy arose from its unique position in human experience. Blood was the only internal substance routinely seen leaving the body, and when it did so in large amounts, life often followed it. Injury, childbirth, sacrifice, and death all made blood visible. It was therefore natural to conclude that blood was not merely part of the body, but the carrier of life within it. This belief appears across cultures with remarkable consistency. In ancient Hebrew thought, blood was explicitly identified with life itself. In many early societies, blood established kinship, inheritance, and identity. To share blood was to share being. To lose blood was to lose strength, memory, and self. Without knowledge of circulation or oxygen transport, blood seemed to contain the essence of vitality rather than simply support it. Blood explained problems that otherwise had no clear account. Why did severe bleeding cause weakness, confusion, and death even when no organ appeared destroyed? Why did menstruation and childbirth carry such symbolic weight? Why did animal sacrifice feel powerful and final? Blood answered these questions by serving as visible life force, transferable and finite. Within this worldview, blood functioned as sacred currency. It could be offered, polluted, inherited, or forbidden. Dietary laws, purity rituals, and sacrificial systems treated blood not as tissue but as concentrated life. Moral meaning attached itself to bloodshed because spilling blood was seen as releasing life itself into the world irreversibly. This belief made sense before modern science because blood loss reliably correlated with death. People did not need microscopes to observe that blood mattered more than flesh. What unsettles modern readers is not the error, but the continuity. Even today, blood remains symbolically charged. We still speak of bloodlines, blood guilt, and blood sacrifice. Ancient people misidentified the mechanism, but they correctly recognized that life depends on something that flows, binds, and cannot be casually replaced. Sexual energy. The belief in sexual energy emerged from the observation that reproduction required effort, cost, and recovery. Sexual activity visibly affected the body. It could produce life, but it could also leave exhaustion behind. Without reproductive biology, it appeared that something essential was being transferred or spent. Many ancient cultures believed that semen or reproductive essence contained concentrated vitality. In this view, sexual restraint preserved strength, while excess weakened the body and spirit. This was not primarily moralistic at first. It was physiological reasoning based on limited evidence. Frequent sexual activity seemed to reduce endurance, while abstinence appeared to conserve vigor. Sexual energy explained why reproduction felt both sacred and dangerous. It created life, yet it demanded sacrifice. Pregnancy weakened women temporarily. Ejaculation weakened men temporarily. Something real was being expended. Without cellular theory, that something became an energy that could be hoarded, misused, or lost. Within this worldview, sexual energy functioned as generative power that required discipline. Religious rules surrounding chastity, purity, and timing were attempts to regulate a force believed to shape health, longevity, and moral clarity. Sex was powerful precisely because it was creative, not because it was sinful. This belief made sense before modern science because reproduction truly does redirect energy and resources. Ancient systems misunderstood the substance but grasped the cost. The unsettling implication is that morality often grows around misunderstood biology. Sexual energy beliefs reveal how easily physical limitation becomes spiritual doctrine when mechanisms remain unseen. Emotional energy. The idea that emotions carried energy arose from how visibly feelings altered the body. Fear quickened breath, anger heated the skin, grief collapsed posture and appetite. These changes were not subtle. Emotions appeared to act like forces moving through the body rather than private mental states. Ancient thinkers therefore treated emotions as external pressures acting upon internal vitality. They were not feelings but passions, something that happened to a person. Excessive grief could kill. Rage could provoke illness. Joy could restore strength. Emotional energy explained why mental disturbance so often preceded physical decline. Within this worldview, emotions functioned as regulators or disruptors of internal balance. Moral instruction emphasized emotional restraint not as self-help, but as survival strategy. To govern the passions was to protect the body from internal harm. This belief made sense before neuroscience because emotional states genuinely produce bodily effects. The error was not the observation, but the interpretation. Modern science describes hormones and neural pathways, but the ancient conclusion remains unsettlingly close. Inner states can damage or heal the body in ways we still cannot fully control. Cosmic order as energy. The belief in cosmic order as energy emerged from observing patterns larger than the human body. Seasons repeat. Stars move predictably. Societies rise and fall. When harmony prevailed, life flourished. When disorder dominated, famine, war, and disease followed. Systems such as the Tao, Logos, and Ma'at treated order itself as an active force sustaining reality. Health, morality, and stability depended on alignment with this order. Disorder was not merely error, it was energetic imbalance. Within this worldview, cosmic order functioned as an invisible structure shaping both nature and human life. Law, ritual, and ethics were tools for maintaining alignment. To act against order was to invite collapse. This belief made sense before modern systems science because patterns were visible even if causes were not. The unsettling implication is that humans still sense when systems drift toward chaos. Ancient people named that drift as energetic imbalance. We name it differently now, but we still fear it. The soul as inner mover. The concept of the soul arose from the need to explain choice, conscience, and continuity. A person changed physically over time yet remained the same self. Decisions emerged without visible cause. Moral responsibility felt real, yet no organ produced it. The soul unified these mysteries into a single animating principle. It was not merely consciousness, but the source of will and accountability. It moved the body, judged actions, and survived physical change. This belief made sense before psychology and neuroscience because agency still resists reduction. Even now, intention feels irreducible. The unsettling implication is that ancient people named the mystery rather than dissolving it. We analyze it, we measure correlations. But the question they raised remains unanswered. Where does the inner mover actually come from? If you enjoy serious questions about ancient beliefs, explained by someone who clearly overthinks everything, go ahead and hit the subscribe button.